You're lying on a straw mattress, wondering if your toes still exist. Not in the philosophical sense. You're genuinely unsure if they've frozen clean off and are just sitting at the bottom of the blanket like lost peas. The wind whistles through the gaps in the wooden walls like it's showing off. The fire went out hours ago, not because you forgot to feed it. No, you fed it. You begged it. You even offered your last splinter of dry kindling. But the fire was done for the night, probably frozen to death, just like your hope. Outside, it's the kind of cold that doesn't just bite, it gnaws. Through cloth, through skin, through bone. A few hours ago, your breath was mist. Now it's not even visible, because the air inside your home is the same temperature as outside. Possibly worse, because at least outside, the wind moves. You curl deeper into the blanket, which is, of course, not really a blanket. It's a ragged rectangle of wool that smells like your neighbor's goat. Possibly is your neighbor's goat's former possession. It's scratchy, full of burrs, and absolutely useless. But it's all you've got. And in medieval winter, that counts for something. Your family lies beside you. All of them. Yes, all of them. Your little sister's icy foot is somewhere near your armpit. Your uncle has been snoring for 3 hours, and Grandma keeps mumbling about fire demons. Again, you don't move. Movement means letting the heat escape. Not that there's much heat, but even a shared body temperature counts when you're fighting for survival. They say cold builds character, but here, cold mostly builds graves. The thing is, you thought it was just winter, but no, this was medieval winter. The kind where you wake up and your breath cracks in the air, where you go to bed hungry and wake up hungrier, where you pray the frozen roof doesn't cave in overnight. There's no insulation, just wooden planks with ambition. The walls are thin. The door, gaps big enough for rats to walk through upright. You once saw your cousin stick his hand through the wall to check the weather. Not even a joke. That's your insulation. Your cousin's hand. And the roof, thatch. Lovely in summer. Leaky in spring. Completely frozen in winter. Snow piles on top like it's trying to become a second floor. Every gust of wind sends flakes down into your soup, your socks, your hair. It's like living inside a slightly angry snow globe. Sometimes the wind howls so hard it sounds like the forest is screaming. You try not to imagine faces in the trees, but when the cold sets in, imagination is one of the few things that still works. Now, if you're wondering why you don't just start a nice, roaring fire and sip warm broth while writing in your medieval diary, well, a few issues. First, there's no wood, or rather, there is, but it belongs to the Lord. You know, the guy in the stone castle down the hill, the one who has walls and servants and probably toes that are still attached. You can't just go chopping his forest. That's his cold forest. Get caught, and you're not just cold. You're cold and whipped. So you burn what you can. Broken cartwheels, rotting fence posts, the wooden spoon you never liked. Some people burn animal dung. It doesn't smell great, but at least it burns. Kind of. Others trade dried moss and old straw for a few lumps of coal, if they're lucky. But coal is expensive. Too expensive. You're not royalty. You're freezing. Second, even if you had wood, you'd need to get it lit. And if the wood's damp, which it always is, you'd have better luck setting your tears on fire. Fire is a luxury. Heat is a fantasy. Warmth? That's just something you whisper about. Like a bedtime story. Your fingers crack. Not metaphorically. Literally. The skin splits open from dryness and cold. You try to rub them together, but the friction feels like sandpaper on bruises. You think about your boots. You don't take them off anymore. Not in winter, because putting them back on is worse. So you sleep with them on. The mud, the smell, the frozen leather hugging your calves like a vengeful icicle. It's all part of the deal. Baths, that's comedy. That's summer talk. In winter, the thought of taking off any clothing is borderline suicidal. The last time your cousin tried to wash his face in the stream, his eyelids froze. He didn't blink right for a week. There's always this idea that medieval people were tougher, hardier, that they didn't feel the cold the way we do. That's adorable. They felt it. They just didn't have the option to complain about it, because complaining takes energy, and energy is better spent not dying. They didn't have thermal socks, or double glazing, or hot cocoa. They had frostbite, and frostbite's less charming. Children cried at night, and no one stopped them, because what would you say? It gets better? It didn't. We'll light a fire? You won't. Spring's coming. Sure, eventually. But first, more freezing. The animals huddle in the stable, which is warmer than your house, by the way, because at least it has manure. Your cousin once offered to sleep in there with the pigs. He wasn't joking. They radiate. Sometimes, just sometimes, the village gathers for a shared fire. A small one, supervised, watched like it's made of gold. Everyone stretches their hands toward it, then quickly pulls back before the smoke catches. And for a few minutes, your fingers forget they're dying. Then it's gone, embers swallowed by the snow. And everyone walks home in silence, like mourners, which, frankly, they are. But here's the thing. They endured. They huddled. They whispered stories. They passed around the last carrot like it was treasure. They sang off-key to keep the silence out. They laughed about frozen snot and cursed the goats for hogging the warm spot. They wrapped the baby in every cloth they owned, and then wrapped each other. They survived because they had no choice, because somehow, underneath the numbness and the cracked skin and the blackened toes, they still had love, tiny, flickering, stubborn warmth. It wasn't comfort, but it was life, and somehow it was enough. You've just arrived, and already you hate it. Your blanket, if you can call a burlap sack folded in half a blanket, smells like turnips and regret. The ground underneath your sleeping space is definitely not flat, and whatever just crawled across your ankle was either a beetle or someone's leftover dinner, possibly both. You roll over. Bad choice. Now there's a rock digging into your ribs. You try the other side. More rocks. Fantastic. Welcome to the medieval peasant camp. No, not a fun summer camp. There are no marshmallows, no games, no counselors in matching shirts. Just you and 50 other people, all here because winter hit hard. The harvest was bad, and you're lucky enough to work for free in exchange for soup and a place to collapse at night. The camp is, in theory, a place of rest. In reality, it's organized chaos. Tents sag like tired shoulders. There's a fire pit that everyone fights over. Not physically, of course. That would waste calories. They just guilt stare until someone moves. The tents, made of whatever people could stitch together, leather scraps, old cloaks, sometimes just woven reeds covered in mud. You don't ask questions. You're assigned a space near the edge, which is better than the center, because at least you're not inhaling smoke all night, but worse, because you're closer to the latrine, which is a generous word for hole in the dirt where smells go to die. You try to sleep again, but the sounds don't stop. Snoring, coughing, babies whimpering. That one guy who talks in his sleep and says very concerning things about chickens. Someone is loudly regretting the fish they ate, and the cold, oh, the cold is personal. It slides into your bones, like it paid rent. You curl tighter. Someone's elbow presses into your side. You don't even care anymore. Shared body heat is currency. Elbows are just part of the deal. Now, you might think, why not leave and go? Where? Back to the half-flooded hut? To the town that barely has food for its own? You're not special. You're just another face in the medieval crowd, trying not to starve, freeze, or get trampled by a cart. So you stay. You adapt, which means you stop complaining. Or at least, you stop saying it out loud. The unspoken rule of camp life is simple. Don't whine. Everyone's miserable. Your misery is not unique. You learn to say things like, well, at least it's not raining, right before it starts raining. You learn to say, could be worse, right before it gets worse. It's a tradition now, a shared joke between people who cry silently into their elbows at night. Breakfast is a thing. Technically, it's hot water with something in it. Maybe oats, maybe moss, maybe someone just waved bread near the pot. Either way, it's warm, and that's enough. You slurp it like it's royal stew. You line up, bowl in hand, pretending you're not judging the person ahead of you for getting a slightly bigger scoop. The ladle is dented, the pot is blackened, and the cook looks like they stopped caring sometime in the last century. But you smile, because that's camp etiquette. Be grateful, or at least pretend. Daytime is work. Of course it is. You gather firewood, which sounds easy until you realize all the nearby trees were stripped months ago. Now you're pulling up roots, digging under snow, praying for dry twigs like they're gold. You patch tents, you clean tools, you dig holes, and not metaphorical ones, actual holes. No one tells you why. You just dig. The tasks never end. But they're somehow better than sitting still. Sitting still means thinking. Thinking means remembering you're cold, hungry, and far too close to a man who hasn't bathed since autumn. Sometimes you laugh. You don't mean to. But someone says something absurd, like, remember fruit? And everyone loses it. Not because it's funny, because it's true. Laughter is rare, but it happens. Usually after exhaustion sets in and your brain decides to give up on sadness for a bit. That's the best part of camp, the delirious, ridiculous parts, like when someone's tent blew away mid-snore, or when the pig wandered into the soup pot and no one noticed for 20 minutes. There's gossip, of course. Someone claims they saw a noble pass by the camp in a carriage. Another says the queen herself sent grain once. A third swears they heard the king's army is coming to recruit. No one knows what that means, but it sounds awful. You nod, you listen, because stories are heat. Even the lies warm you up. Nights are quiet, but never peaceful. You fall asleep to coughing. You wake up to silence. And that silence, that's the scariest sound. It means someone didn't make it through the night. But the camp doesn't stop. People gather, say a few words, dig another hole. Then it's back to work. Because survival doesn't pause for grief. But somehow, this broken, muddy, smoky place becomes familiar. You learn which tent leaks the least. You figure out which ladle angle gets more soup. You discover who snores, who steals blankets, and who will share theirs when it's really bad. You get used to the smell. You stop noticing the fleas. You start calling this place ours, because even here, where the ground is never dry, the food is never enough, and the sky always looks like it's about to fall on your head. You find something strange, not comfort, not happiness, but community. People who know what it's like to be cold, tired, and forgotten. People who give you half their potato without a word. People who make jokes about the soup and mean it as love. You still hate it, of course, but now you hate it together, and that, weirdly, makes it bearable. You lie down and immediately regret it. There's a stick poking your lower back. Something sharp is scratching your shoulder. And your pillow, if you want to call a bundled up tunic that smells like onions a pillow, has gone completely flat. Welcome to your medieval bed, or as the town crier definitely never called it, the ultimate luxury experience. You roll over, trying to find a soft spot. There isn't one. What you're lying on is a bag, a large, scratchy, burlap sack filled with things, hopefully hay, possibly straw, maybe a rat or two if you're new and didn't check first. The sack shifts beneath you. Something rustles. You freeze. Is it just the hay? Or is Timothy the camp mouse making his usual rounds? Either way, you're too tired to care. You close your eyes and pretend the straw isn't stabbing you through the fabric. Let's be clear. A bed in the 1300s wasn't a plush, feather-filled dreamscape with linen sheets and lavender-scented fluff. That was for lords. You? You get what you can stuff in a sack and call horizontal, straw if you're lucky, old reeds if you're not, and if you're really unlucky, you're just lying directly on the floor with a cloak draped over your legs and a prayer that the lice go easy tonight. Even hay was considered high-end. It was softer than straw, warmer, and less likely to give you splinters in places splinters should not be. But hay is for animals, valuable animals, not you. You once heard a rumor that a neighboring village got actual wool stuffing in their beds. You don't know if it's true, but sometimes, when it's late and your hips are bruised from the floorboards, you dream about it. You share your sleeping space, of course. Nobody sleeps alone. Not because of love or romance or any kind of poetic nonsense, but because sleeping alone means freezing to death. So your bed? It includes your brother, your cousin, that one uncle who never stops humming, and maybe a Goat, if the barn's full, you all fit together like badly cut puzzle pieces, elbowing and sighing, muttering and kicking until you form a semi-cozy, slightly smelly, body heat fueled survival unit. You've learned to sleep through snoring, through coughing, through that one kid who insists on sleep mumbling about cabbage. It's not peace, it's not comfort, but it's enough to keep your blood moving. The floor creaks, your sack rustles, the cold seeps up through the boards like it has a personal vendetta. You pull the blanket tighter. Not a blanket, actually, just an old wool's tunic that doesn't fit anyone anymore. Or maybe it does. You're all smaller in winter. You've worn every layer you own to bed. Shirt, second shirt, third shirt with holes, and someone else's sock tied around your neck. Not for style, for warmth. You know, people say they were tougher back then. But the truth, they were just more tired. When you work sunup to sundown, digging, hauling, chopping, and carrying buckets of questionable stew, your standards for rest become flexible. Is it flat? Close enough? Is it dry? Mostly. Does it smell like old cabbage? Always. You lie down and your body just shuts off. No lullabies. No bedtime tea. Just one long exhale into scratchy hay and a cloud of flea dust. Of course, there's maintenance. Every few weeks, you empty out the hay, shake the sack, and restuff it. That's assuming you have more hay. If not, you fluff the existing hay like it's fine wine and hope the mice haven't nested. And yes, you have fleas. They're part of the decor. You swat at them in your sleep. Wake up scratching. Blame the dog. Blame the straw. Blame the neighbor's straw. You try not to think about the things that live in your bed. The tiny legs, the tiny teeth, the tiny infestations. You learn to stop caring. Sometimes, when you visit the manor to deliver firewood or bread, you see their beds, feather mattresses, pillows, blankets thicker than your entire outfit, curtains around the bed to keep in warmth. One time, you touched a noble's sheet, just with your fingertip. It was smoother than anything you'd ever known. You're still not sure it was real. It felt like a dream you weren't allowed to have. But they don't sleep better than you. You tell yourself that anyway, because at least your haystack doesn't come with a side of guilt, or taxes, or nobles whispering about who's marrying whom. Your sack just rustles and lets you rest. Mostly, the nights are long, the aches are real, your spine bends in ways it probably shouldn't. You wake up with straw in your ears and the taste of smoke in your mouth. You stretch and hear your joints click like a medieval percussion set. But you get up. You put your feet on the freezing floor. You start the fire. You boil water. You live. And at the end of the day, when your bones are heavy and your feet scream, you return to that scratchy, lumpy, uneven, possibly infested sack and lie down. Because somehow, it's your sack. It's not soft. It's not warm. But it's something. And for now, that's enough. You wake up and your toes are cold, colder than usual, cold in that exposed to the elements and probably judging you kind of way. You sit up slowly, blinking at the gray morning light seeping through the cracks in the wall. Your knees ache. Your back sounds like a snapping branch, and somewhere in your brain you hear a quiet voice. Check the boots. You look to the corner where you placed them last night, carefully, like sacred relics, except they're gone. Again, this isn't the first time. It won't be the last. Boots, in this camp, are like gold, with laces. They're traded, borrowed, stolen, restolen, and occasionally returned if you're very lucky or the thief feels guilty. Yours weren't fancy. They weren't even particularly whole, but they were yours. And now, they're not. You rub your bare feet together for warmth. It doesn't help. The floor is cold. The air is colder. And stepping outside without boots is like asking frostbite to go ahead and move in permanently. You take a breath and prepare for the search, the highly sophisticated medieval method known as wandering around and scowling at people. You check the usual suspects first. That kid with the too big coat and the too shifty eyes. He shrugs, says he found his boots near the pig trough. Suspicious, but those aren't yours. Yours had a flap missing. Then there's Agnes, the one who swears her boots were blessed by a monk and would never stoop to thievery. You glance at her feet. Sandals. In winter. Okay. Maybe not her. You trudge through the camp barefoot, dodging icy puddles and sharp stones, muttering curses that haven't been invented yet. The ground feels like betrayal. The mud sucks at your toes, like it's trying to finish the job. You finally find them, your boots, on someone else's feet. They're walking around like they own the ground, like they didn't just steal the last barrier between your flesh and the very concept of hypothermia. You clear your throat, loudly. Nice boots. They stop. Look down. Look at you. Oh, these? I thought they were abandoned. Abandoned. You smile the kind of smile that says, I would punch you if my fingers weren't numb. You argue. They argue. Eventually, they give them back, reluctantly, like a toddler returning a toy they very much still want. The boots are damp now, and one smells suspiciously like cabbage, but you slide them on anyway, thankful to feel something close to dignity return. Now, let's talk about boots. In theory, medieval peasants had shoes. In practice, they had something. If you were lucky, you had leather boots. Homemade, hand-stitched, awkward, stiff, and gloriously imperfect. If not, you tied cloth around your feet and hoped no one stepped on you. Shoes were expensive. Repairing them was an art. You learned to patch holes with twine or flatten metal scraps into makeshift soles. If a heel broke, you didn't complain. You limped creatively. There were no left or right boots, just boot-shaped. You broke them in with time, pain, and lots of muttering. Wet boots, common. Dry boots, mythical. Warm boots, that's a joke. They never stayed dry, ever. Between the rain, the mud, the snow, and the occasional goat-related incident, your boots lived in a constant state of damp despair. You stuffed hay inside to soak up the moisture. It helped. A little. Mostly, it just made your boots smell like soggy barn. Sometimes, if the fire was going and you were feeling bold, you'd try to dry them out overnight. Bad idea. You wake up to stiff, shrunken boots that now fit like angry bricks. And if you left them too close, congratulations. You now own two very flammable soup bowls. Everyone knew that boots walked away in camp. It wasn't personal, it was survival. A broken lace meant someone borrowed yours just for a bit. A torn sole meant someone took yours just to fetch water. Sometimes people forgot they weren't theirs. You tried writing your name inside once. The ink ran. Then someone named Not Yours started wearing them. You tried hiding them under your sack, in the hay, inside your shirt. Nothing worked, because if someone needed boots more than you did, they'd find them. Still, when you had your boots, you felt rich. Boots meant mobility, authority. Booted feet sounded important. They stomped, they squished. They meant you could go to town, walk to work, even sneak into the woods without frostbitten regrets. Barefoot meant stuck. Booted meant maybe. Now, with your reclaimed, slightly cabbage-scented boots on your feet, you walk back to your tent. The sun is barely up. The ground is still frozen. But you feel taller, warmer. You glance at your neighbor, barefoot, arms crossed, glaring at the ground. You sigh, take off your boots, hand them over. Just for an hour. They nod. You walk back to the fire, barefoot, again. Because in this camp, sharing boots is how we survive. It's not justice. It's not fair. But it's the only way anyone makes it to spring. You wrinkle your nose. Again. You tried breathing through your mouth. Didn't help. You tried standing upwind. Didn't matter. The smell follows you, like a curse with leather boots. Because guess what? The warriors are back, and with them, a scent strong enough to peel paint off a cathedral. No, not just one of them, all of them. The first thing you hear is their boots, clomping down the muddy road like a slow-moving thunderstorm made of sweat and body odor. Then you see the dust, the bruises, the bandaged limbs and bloody tunics, and then the smell hits. It's like someone boiled onions, horse sweat, old meat, and regret in a rusty helmet, then spilled it across the countryside. You turn your head politely, pretending not to gag, because, respect the warriors. But internally, your nose is holding a protest march. To be fair, bathing hasn't really been on the to-do list. They've been out for weeks, marching, sleeping in trenches, rolling through mud, smoke, and human misery. No soap, no rivers, and certainly no time to stop and say, "Hey lads, let's take a lavender bath." You get close to one of them, not by choice, and you swear his armor fumes. There's a visible haze around him. His tunic has become one with his skin. You're not sure where the man ends, and the smell begins. You offer him bread. He takes it with hands so grimy they could leave fingerprints on air. You say nothing. You nod like it's normal, because in a way, it is. Medieval warriors weren't exactly squeaky clean. They weren't supposed to be. They were fighters, protectors, sweat-soaked symbols of survival. Their job wasn't hygiene. It was holding the line. Baths were rare. Clothes were recycled. Armor? Almost never cleaned, especially if it was steel, which rusted faster than dignity in the rain. They layered leather, cloth, chainmail, and mud, a walking sandwich of effort and odor. And every time they returned to camp, the entire village felt it. The blacksmith would cough louder. The baker would throw more herbs in the stew. The goats would move a little further away. No one ever told them they stank. You just sort of accepted it. Oh, the smell? That means we're safe now. Don't breathe too deeply. It's the scent of bravery. You had to respect it, or at least pretend, because these were the people keeping bandits away, fighting border skirmishes, coming home with bruises instead of news. And if that meant your nose died a little every time one of them sat next to you, well, so be it. One night, you sat by the fire next to a particularly aromatic warrior named Gregory. His beard had twigs in it. His cloak was more mud than fabric. You all right there, lad? He asked. You nodded, eyes watering. Bit ripe, I am, he added, like he was talking about cheese. Then he laughed, loudly. Smells like courage, don't it? You nodded again, not because you agreed, but because your brain was too focused on staying conscious. In camp, warriors always had a special place, not just near the fire, but in people's minds. They told the stories, they had the scars, they smelled like misery, yes, but also survival. The children ran to them, the elders nodded solemnly. The rest of you just tried to breathe as shallowly as possible. Someone once tried to freshen them with herbs, just threw some rosemary and thyme into a helmet. It helped for about 3 minutes. Then the herbs surrendered. But here's the thing, under the layers of stink and soot and sweat, these were still people, people who cried in their sleep, who winced when they sat down, who held their side when they thought no one was looking. The smell wasn't just grime, it was fear, pain, frozen nights, unwashed wounds, the weight of every decision that didn't get them killed. You stopped flinching eventually, not because you got used to it, but because you saw the human underneath. When the warriors left again, you didn't miss the smell, but you missed what it meant, that someone was standing between you and the cold, violent world, that someone else would return with stories and bruises and, yes, an odor that could knock over a cow. And when the breeze blew in from the hills and you caught a whiff of sweat and leather in the air, you'd turn your head and think, they're coming home. Time to light the fire, hide the soap, and maybe stuff a bit of rosemary up your nose. Because that smell, it meant you'd live another day. You're lying flat on your back, staring at the canvas ceiling like it's going to whisper escape instructions. Outside, it's raining. Of course it's raining. The tent is leaking, gently, mockingly, in 3 very specific places. One on your forehead, one by your ankle, and one on the only semi-dry patch of straw you had left. Inside, it's not peaceful, not even close, because you're sharing this tent with 6 very loud men. One of them snores like he's fighting off a bear in his dreams. Another mutters things like, turnips shouldn't speak, in his sleep. A third just farts rhythmically, ah, as if his rear end took up percussion for a peasant band. You roll to your side and immediately hit someone's elbow. You try to shift again, and your knee knocks over a small cup of something warm. Or maybe it was warm. Now it's soaking into the straw, smelling faintly of cabbage and regret. Someone coughs, loudly, and keeps coughing, until finally, you, dying, Harold, or just trying to keep us all awake. Bit of both, comes the reply. Laughter erupts, at full volume, You close your eyes. You're not sure whether to scream or cry or join in. Here's the thing about medieval tents. They're not private. They're not spacious. They're not even really tents half the time. More like sad canvas blankets stretched over sticks, reinforced with rope and desperation. You're sleeping in what feels like a large laundry bag that smells like wet socks and old firewood, and you are not alone. Why? Because tents are for groups, for soldiers, workers, labor crews, people who need to stay warm and alive, preferably both. And so, the more bodies, the better. The louder the bodies. Apparently, that's a bonus no one warned you about. There's Walter. He talks in his sleep. Last night he tried to negotiate with the Pope in his dreams, loudly. I won't pay the goat tax, Your Holiness, he shouted. You still haven't recovered. Then there's Martin. His snoring sounds like someone sharpening a sword underwater. And old Gerald? He doesn't snore. He just hums. Hums medieval hymns. Hums about bread. Hums while chewing on dried apples. In the dark. Helps me sleep, he says, full mouth. You're not sure who it's helping. You try to carve out your little corner. A bundle of straw, a small pack, a spoon, no one will steal. But space is a fantasy here. You're sleeping arm to arm, shoulder to shoulder, occasionally mouth to foot. One man's elbow is your pillow. Another's knee is alarmingly close to your ribs. There's no such thing as boundaries, only hope. The tent creaks in the wind. A pot clinks near the entrance. Someone is sharpening a blade. Why now? No one knows. Better now than during battle, says the man. Like that explains anything. He sneezes afterward. Onto your blanket. You say nothing. You're numb now. You miss silence. You miss the idea of a room where no one's talking, or belching, or loudly remembering that they left a chicken unattended 3 villages ago. But silence doesn't live in this tent. What lives here is noise, sweat, damp wool, and the soft scent of foot fungus. And yet, oddly, there's also laughter. Loud, ridiculous laughter that bursts out in the middle of the night when someone trips over a helmet or when someone confesses they used the cooking pot as a footbath. After the stew, thankfully. You laugh too, eventually, because at some point your brain gives up, and all you have left is the strange comfort of shared madness. You hear someone shuffling. You awake? A voice whispers. It's never really a question. Was I ever? You reply. Someone else groans. A muffled giggle. Another fart. Of course. You sigh. Close your eyes. You've accepted your fate. This is the noise you fall asleep to now. It's not peaceful. It's not calm. But it's alive. And when the wind howls and the tent shakes, it's not silence that comforts you. It's the sound of other idiots snoring beside you. The fire's out. You stare at the blackened logs like they betrayed you personally. A few hours ago, it was crackling, glowing, breathing. Now it's just a pile of ash with a grudge. The cold settles in fast, not like a chill, but like a punishment. You pull your cloak tighter. It doesn't help. It's more whole than fabric at this point. You might as well be hugging a question. You glance at the others. No one says anything. No one needs to. The silence says it all. We're officially on our own now. Fire in camp isn't just warmth. It's everything. It means light. It means cooking. It means maybe, just maybe, you'll feel your fingers again before spring. And now? Now it's gone. Someone pokes at the ashes with a stick, like maybe the fire's just pretending. It isn't. It's dead. So is your optimism. We can relight it, someone offers. With what? Spite? Hope? There's no wood left. The pile's empty. The twigs are wet. The kindling's gone. And the axe is still missing because someone used it to trade for bread last week. Which, honestly, fair. You all stare at the fire pit like it's going to apologize. It doesn't. It just sits there, cold, dark, unbothered. There's talk of going into the woods, at night, in the snow, with wolves. Sure, let's just walk into the forest, wearing potato sacks and optimism. You think about offering your last candle, but it's stubby, sad, and smells like lard. And the last time someone tried to cook over a candle, it ended with flaming turnips and one very singed eyebrow. Without the fire, everything changes. You can't see. You can't cook. You can't feel. The shadows creep in, slow and heavy. The wind slithers through the seams of the tent like it's been waiting for this moment. You all shuffle closer, forming a human knot of wool, knees, and body odor. You hate the smell, but you hate the cold more. Your breath hangs in the air, foggy and dramatic. You pretend it's on purpose. Someone tries rubbing two sticks together. Again, it works in stories, they mutter. It doesn't work here. Not in this damp, miserable, finger-freezing corner of the world. You think about what fire used to mean. Warm bread, boiled stew, a place to dry your socks, a place to talk without chattering teeth. Now it's just a memory. You try to sleep, curled like a bean in a blanket that might have once belonged to a sheep, a very itchy, very unhelpful sheep. You wake up 15 minutes later because someone sneezed on your foot. Eventually, someone suggests singing, not because anyone feels particularly musical, but because the silence is starting to feel too loud. So you hum, then someone else joins in. It's not good. No one's on key. The lyrics are mostly made up, but it fills the space. And weirdly, that helps. Just a little. Then comes the whisper, "Hey, the coals are still warm." You all snap your heads toward the fire pit. A glimmer, the tiniest ember, barely a heartbeat of heat, but it's there. Everyone scrambles. Someone fans it. Someone sacrifices a bit of their shirt hem. Someone throws in straw from their bed. Come on, come on. A spark, a flicker, a flame. It's small, ugly, pathetic, but you stare at it like it's the sun itself. You huddle closer. No one speaks. No one breathes. The fire catches. It's not roaring, but it's alive. And so, maybe are you. The warmth spreads slowly, like a secret returning. You hold out your hands. The numbness fades a little. Your shoulders drop. You're still hungry, still tired, still stuck in a leaking tent with no dry socks and one guy who won't stop whistling through his nose. But for now, there's fire. And where there's fire, there's hope, even the stubborn kind. You lift the lid of the pot, hoping for a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's fish. Again, dry, curled, grayish. Smells like it lost a fight with a bucket and then rolled in salt for revenge. You sigh. The others gather around like it's a feast, but no one is smiling because tonight's dinner isn't meat, it's dried fish and regret. Let's get one thing straight: real meat. The juicy, dripping, chew with your eyes closed kind is a fantasy. Maybe the Lord's table has it. Maybe the church feasts. Maybe your cousin's cousin once had mutton in 1311. But you have fish. Fish from a barrel. Fish that was dried sometime in a century no one remembers. Fish that crumbles if you breathe on it wrong. It's not even the good kind. It's campfish. The kind traders throw in as an afterthought. The kind that tastes like sadness and boat. You chew, slowly, carefully. It's sharp in places, rubbery in others. Your jaw does more work than your legs did all day. You add water from the soup pot. Doesn't help. Now it's wet regret. Someone tries a joke. Tastes better than last week. Silence. Then a few laughs. Not because it's true, because it's so clearly not. Dried fish is the kind of food that humbles you. It humbles your taste, buds, your dreams, your entire relationship with the concept of flavor. You used to be picky. Now you're just grateful it's not moldy. You remember meat, real meat, maybe, roasted over fire, spiced, or at least not salted into oblivion, with juices that made your fingers slick. Now your fingers are just dry, your lips cracked, and your breath smells like brine and bitterness. You poke your piece with a spoon. It doesn't move. Is it supposed to crunch? You ask. Only if it's fresh. Someone answers. It's not. There's a small pile of bones in the corner of your bowl. How there are bones in a dried fish, no one can explain. You just sigh and set them aside like they're valuables. Someone tries to trade a piece of bread for an extra fillet. You stop them, not out of fairness, out of mercy. The younger ones pretend it's meat. They close their eyes. They hum softly, pretending it's roast duck or wild boar or something that didn't live in a river last fall. You let them dream. You wonder how many more nights of this you'll have. Salted fish, boiled oats, maybe a turnip if someone's feeling generous. You miss crunch, you miss chew, you miss fat, real greasy, sinful fat that coats your lips and tells your stomach you're loved. You miss the taste of not trying this hard. Later, someone burps. It smells like despair. You all groan, but it's a shared groan, a communal suffering. Maybe tomorrow, someone whispers, the traders will bring lamb. Maybe tomorrow, you reply, the fish will taste less like rope. You both know neither is true. Night falls. The bowl is empty. Your teeth hurt. Your spirits chewing. You lie down, belly full of salt and memories. You're not satisfied, not even close, but you're fed. And in this camp, sometimes that's all you get. Sometimes that's enough. It's the middle of the night. You know this not because you can see a clock. You don't have one. But because the moonlight is just barely filtering through the canvas flap. And because your soul is being rattled by the unholy symphony. Around you, they snore, loudly, aggressively, like it's a performance. Like somewhere deep inside, they believe they're part of a medieval marching band, and their nostrils are percussion. It starts with one, A low, slow rumble, almost peaceful. You think maybe you can live with that. Maybe it's even kind of comforting. But then comes the second guy, and he doesn't snore. He honks, like a goose, in its final moments. Then the third joins in. His pattern is unpredictable. A snore, snort, sniff, cough combo that sounds like a goat choking on a flute. You lie there, eyes wide open, wrapped in a sack that smells like wet wool and hopelessness, wondering what life choices led you here. There are 7 of you in the tent, and only one of you is awake. You, the others, fully unconscious, blissfully unaware, lost in dreams of bread, battle, or whatever it is people dream about when they inhale their own blanket fuzz. But their bodies are wide awake, at least in the noise department. You try plugging your ears. Doesn't help. The vibrations are physical now. The ground shakes every time Harold exhales through his nose like an angry warhorse. You throw your cloak over your head. The snoring gets louder somehow, like your suffering feeds it. You nudge someone. Nothing. You nudge harder. He rolls over, snores directly into your neck, and sighs like you're the problem. You sit up, consider leaving the tent. Then you remember it's snowing. Hard. So it's either sleep with the snorchestra or go outside and let your toes freeze off in protest. You lie back down. Try to focus on something else. Think of a river, a quiet stream, a gentle breeze. Nope. You're pulled back in by a thunderous wheeze that sounds like someone choking on their dreams. How is he still alive? You whisper. There's a pause. Then a whimper. Then someone laughs in their sleep. Not joyfully, just a single creepy chuckle. You add haunted tent to the list of concerns. Here's the thing no one tells you about medieval life. It's not the war. It's not the hunger. It's the snoring. There's no such thing as personal space. No privacy. No little quiet room to retreat to. Just one tent, one blanket, and a bunch of exhausted men who all breathe like broken bagpipes. You've learned to identify them by their sounds. Walter, high-pitched inhale, sudden cough, dramatic pause. Tom, slow rumble, deep sigh, emotional shuffle. Big Rick, pure volume. Sounds like he's dragging a log up a hill every 5 seconds. And Gerald, sweet, sweet Gerald, the man who hums while he sleeps. Hymns, in Latin, possibly invented. You try humming too, just to drown it out. But now, you're just part of the madness. You open one eye, someone is drooling. Someone else is hugging your leg. You don't know who. You don't care anymore. You've given up. You whisper softly, if anyone's awake, I will trade a boot and half a potato for silence. No response, just a unified, off-tempo snort. Eventually, your brain gives up. You don't fall asleep. You surrender. The snores become the background, the beat, the cursed lullaby of your nightly suffering. And when the sun finally rises and the first man wakes up and stretches like he hasn't kept you all in audio torment for 8 hours straight, you don't say a word. You just stare because you know tonight it all happens again. Same tent, same men, same noise. Because in this camp, the snoring never stops. It's not quiet. It's just medieval. You have to go. Not in the metaphorical, dramatic, leave the village and start over kind of way. though that sounds nice, but in the much more immediate, personal, bodily kind of way. It's the middle of the night. The wind is howling. Your blanket is wrapped around you like a damp tortilla, but your insides are staging a quiet rebellion. You need the latrine, and it is somewhere out there. In the dark, you try to wait it out. Maybe if you lie still long enough, your body will forget it has organs. But no, your stomach makes a noise that sounds like a dying goose. Someone nearby groans in their sleep. You pretend it wasn't you. You sit up, slowly, regretfully. The tent creaks. Someone mutters, "Good luck," without opening their eyes. You crawl over at least two people, step in something that might be a sock or might be soup, and unzip the canvas flap. Except there's no zipper, so you sort of just flail it open with purpose. And now you're outside. The cold hits you like a personal insult. You thought you were ready. You were not. The wind slices through your cloak like butter through sadness. The mud sucks at your boots. The sky is starless and judging you. You hold up a lantern. It gives off about as much light as a nervous firefly. Where is it? You mutter. You mean the latrine, the hole, the trench, the one sacred space where humans go to suffer privately. And right now, it's gone. It was here earlier. You remember, past the storage tent, near the tree that leans like it's had a long life and too much mead. But in the dark, everything becomes mysterious and vaguely threatening. You shuffle forward. Every shadow looks like it's plotting something. Every breeze feels like a warning. Is that the latrine pit? No, that's just where someone dumped potatoes. Is that it? Nope, that's where the goat fell asleep. You consider just not going, but your stomach insists. At last, you find it, or rather, you smell it. The latrine doesn't sneak up on you, it announces itself. You approach the trench cautiously, like it's alive. Someone built a rough privacy screen from spare planks and good intentions. It flaps in the wind like a haunted banner. There's no seat, no dignity, just a hole, a pit, a direct line to everything you wish to forget. You hover, you shiver, you reconsider every meal from the past 48 hours. This is not a moment for pride. This is survival. Suddenly, a twig snaps nearby. You jump. Your lantern flickers. You whisper something that would get you excommunicated if the local priest heard. It's probably nothing. A squirrel. A cursed ghost. A goat that's also trying to use the latrine. You finish your business in record time. It's not graceful. It's not poetic. It's a blur of fumbling, muttering, and regretting all dairy. Then, the final test, the walk back, in the dark, with slightly damp boots, through a maze of tents, ropes, sleeping bodies, and livestock with no boundaries. You try to be quiet. You fail. You knock over a bucket. Someone snores louder in protest. You step on something that squishes. You don't ask questions. Finally, you're back at your sleeping sack. You collapse into it like a falling tree. Your blanket is colder now. Your toes are wet. Your pride is gone. But your stomach has stopped rebelling. And that's something. Out here, the latrine is always somewhere out there. It's a place of solitude, of shame, of wind-burned thighs and whispered prayers. It's also a reminder you are fragile, you are human, and medieval life does not care. The wind howls, not in a poetic, gentle, listen to the breeze kind of way. No, this wind attacks. It doesn't whisper, it gnaws. And tonight, it's found you. You pull your cloak tighter, but it's like asking a wet rag to protect you from a sword. The wool is thin, the edges are fraying. It smells like damp sheep and sadness, but it's all you have. You're outside because someone said the fire needed more wood, and you, being the fool with working legs and no current job to dodge, volunteered. That was 20 minutes ago. Now you're wandering through camp with numb fingers and a small bundle of twigs that may or may not be flammable, questioning every life decision that brought you here. The wind hits your face like a slap, cold, sharp, personal. Your eyes water instantly. Your nose is already trying to evacuate your face. Your ears? Useless. Just decorative icicles now. You try to wrap your scarf higher, but the wind lifts it, laughs at it, sends it flying off into the night like, nice try, peasant. You shuffle forward, knees stiff, shoulders hunched, doing that half walk, half pray thing you do when your feet can't feel the ground anymore. Each gust feels like 1,000 tiny needles. It finds the holes in your clothing, the seams, the gaps between buttons, the sole. You pass the goat shelter. The goats are huddled together, snoring like furry ovens. You hate them, a little, not because they're warm, but because they know how to survive this better than you do. You consider joining them, just burrowing in between hooves and horns. But you keep moving. Pride or stupidity, it's hard to tell them apart in this weather. You reach the fire pit, or what's left of it. The wind already had its way with the flames. Nothing's left but cold ash and two very unimpressed embers. You dump your twigs on top. Try to shield them with your hands. Your fingers don't move right. They bend like spoons, feel like wood. You strike flint once, twice. Your breath is so loud you can hear it over the wind. The sparks land, flicker, die. You whisper at the embers like they owe you something. Come on, please. One tiny flame, then another. You crouch, face close, knowing full well this fire will never love you like you love it. But you feed it anyway, because even the smallest flame is something. Then the wind comes back, full force, like it was waiting. It tears through camp like an angry ghost. The tent ropes creak. A pot flies by. You duck, barely. You hold your cloak shut with both hands. But the wind bites through it. Your ankles burn. Your scalp tingles. You can't tell if your skin is red, white, or just gone. You hear someone shout from inside a tent. Storm's turning. You resist the urge to yell back, "So's my face." You make your way back. Fire forgotten. Embers lost to the storm. You're limping now. Not because you're injured, but because one of your boots froze at a weird angle, and now your foot refuses to bend. Your teeth are chattering so hard, you worry they might chip. The flap to your tent is flailing like it's trying to escape. You wrestle it down, dive inside. Inside isn't warm, but it's less murderous. The other bodies are curled up like hibernating hedgehogs. No one moves. You collapse into the pile. Someone grunts. Someone else shifts and mutters, "Finally." You don't reply. You're too busy thawing. The wind howls outside, scratches the canvas like it wants in. You whisper to it, "Not tonight." It answers with a long, icy shriek. You close your eyes, face half buried in someone's wool-clad shoulder, and listen to the storm tear across the camp. It's not over. It never is. But for now, you're not outside, and that's victory enough. You are almost asleep, the kind of sleep where your brain gives up before your body does, where you finally stop hearing the snoring, the wind, the guy muttering about chickens in his dreams, and then, thud, a noise so sharp, so heavy, so final, your soul briefly leaves your body. You bolt upright, heart doing drum rolls, and there it is, an axe buried in the ground, exactly 4 inches from where your head had just been. No one else in the tent reacts, because this is camp, and in camp, axes falling out of nowhere apparently aren't news. You blink, you look around. Did, did someone just throw an axe? You ask, delicately. Walter lifts his head slightly from his haystack. Oops, he says. Slipped. He shrugs, like he just dropped a spoon. You want to scream, but your lungs are still rebooting. The axe sits there, innocent and rude, gleaming slightly in the firelight. Your face is cold. Your hands are sweating. You're now 99% awake and 1% debating the meaning of fate. You lean over, pull it from the ground. It comes up with a soft chunk. You hold it like it's a snake with trust issues. Maybe next time, you say, through a tight smile. Put it down before sleeping. Walter grins, already drifting back into unconsciousness, like nothing happened. You look at the others. No one moves. One guy's arm is literally under another man's knee. No one cares. Here's the thing about camp life. Safety is a concept, not a guarantee. Sharp objects are everywhere. Axes, knives, broken ladles, spoons filed down into whatever someone needed that day. People keep blades next to their bedrolls like bedtime stories. Why? Because out here, you never know what's coming. Wolves, raiders, some guy arguing over firewood at midnight. So yes, you sleep next to weapons. It's normal until they fall near your face. Then it's just another Tuesday. You try to lie back down, but now you're aware of everything. The flap of the tent, the creak of the ropes, the sound of someone softly sharpening something in the dark. Why are you sharpening that now? You whisper. Can't sleep, comes the answer. Skirsh, skirch. Perfect. That's soothing. You place the axe gently outside the sleeping circle. You build a small pile, the axe, 2 knives, one wooden spoon with suspicious edges. You look at them like they're plotting. Then you crawl back to your corner, lay down, close your eyes, try again. You imagine what tomorrow will be. You'll wake up. Someone will be yelling. Someone else will be trying to cook porridge over a fire made of old sandals. And someone, probably Walter, will ask why you look so tense. But for now, you lie still, eyes half open, listening, wondering if maybe you should have just slept in the goat shelter. They, at least, don't own axes. It starts softly, a low hum, barely noticeable. You think maybe it's the wind again, slipping through the seams of the tent, making things creak, whisper, exist ominously. But no, It gets louder, off key, nasal, wavering like the voice isn't sure where it's going, but it's absolutely going to get there anyway. What is that? You whisper. The guy next to you groans. That's Bartram. You blink in the dark. What's he doing? He says it's a lullaby. You listen harder. It is not a lullaby. It's more like a goose being slowly strangled by a second goose, and both are drunk and trying to harmonize. Bartram sings with the confidence of a man who's never once heard a note correctly, but assumes the problem is you. You pull the blanket over your face. It doesn't help. His voice pierces wool like an emotional dagger. Stars above us. Bring the sleep. Goat meat pie. And goat meat pie? Someone snaps. He improvises. Someone else explains. You try to tune it out. You think of peaceful things. Bread baking. Streams trickling. Literally anything other than Bartram's falsetto. No luck. He hits a note so high it startles the fire. A small spark jumps. Someone coughs in surprise. Bartram, please. It's tradition, he insists. My mother sang this to me. Your mother had enemies, comes a voice from the back. But he keeps going. Every line more abstract than the last. Oh, stars, don't fall and crush the sheep. Okay, someone mutters. That one was new. You open your eyes. Everyone is wide awake. Blankets over heads. Faces turned toward the ceiling, like the sound might physically leave if you pretend hard enough. One guy is silently mouthing curses into his pillow. Another's eyes are twitching, like he's doing mental battle with every wrong note. Here's what you learn living in camp. Singing is allowed, encouraged, even, but only if it doesn't sound like a musical interpretation of Plague. Bartram, sadly, is not bound by such limitations. He sings because he feels. He sings because he can. He sings because sleep is clearly something the rest of you don't deserve tonight. You sit up. Bartram. He pauses mid-line. Yes? We are all going to rise up, as one, and smother you. A beat. Then laughter. Real laughter breaks through the tent like sunshine through fog. Even Bartram chuckles. He hums the rest under his breath. Mercifully, quieter. You lie back down, ears still ringing. But something strange happens. The tension eases. The tent is still cold, still cramped, still crawling with snoring, twitching, and the occasional whispered dream fight about bread. But the laughter softened the night. Even Bartram's horrible crooning turned into a kind of glue, the shared suffering that bonded everyone together. You close your eyes. He starts humming again, still off key, still wrong. But now, it's kind of funny, kind of familiar, like home. You're trying to sleep. Really, you are. But it's hard to feel comforted when you're wrapped in something that smells like a soggy wolf rolled through a barnyard and then gave up on life. There are no blankets, not out here, just furs, and not the clean, fluffy, noble kind you read about in those old stories. No, these are camp furs, unwashed, untamed, unapologetically awful. You pull the fur tighter around your shoulders, trying to squeeze some warmth out of it, but all you get is a noseful of wet dog meets dying goat. It's heavy, it's damp, it's shedding in your mouth, and it's all that stands between you and freezing to death. Across the tent, someone sneezes violently. A puff of fur explodes into the air like a tragic snow globe. You blink, cough, and taste something that might have once been part of a badger. At least it's warm, someone mutters from the corner. You glance over. He's buried under 2 layers of what might be bear, or maybe just an angry cowhide. Only his nose is visible. It twitches when he breathes. Warm? You reply. It smells like regret and mildew. Exactly, just like home. These furs have a history. Nobody knows exactly where they came from. Some say they were traded from the north. Others swear they were taken from wolves. Mid-snarl, one guy insists his is actually 3 raccoons, sewn together by a very confused tailor. What's certain is this: they've never been washed, because washing furs ruins the integrity, apparently, or maybe it's just that no one wants to wring out a pile of wet fox skin in winter. Either way, the smell is permanent. You try to shift your position. The fur makes a squelching noise. You pause. Consider your life choices. The hair clings to your clothes, your skin, your soul. You're not sure where the fur ends and you begin. At some point, you gave up trying to brush it off. Now you just wear it like a badge of honor or a punishment. Hard to say. There was a time, you remember, when you dreamed of soft blankets, wool, maybe linen, something clean. Now, your bedtime wish list is simple, not crusty, not crawling, doesn't bite. The fur mostly meets that standard. Someone once tried to air theirs out, hung it on a stick, let the breeze hit it. Big mistake. The wind caught it, flipped it over the tent, and it landed in the cooking pot. You had stew that night. No one made eye contact. But the worst part? You're getting used to it. The smell, the scratch, the way it wraps around you like a disappointed sheep. Your nose doesn't even flinch anymore. And when someone new joins the camp and gags the first time they touch it, you just nod solemnly and say, "Give it 3 nights." They never believe you until they do. You curl up tighter. The fur shifts. Something falls out of it. You hope it's just a twig. You pull the hide over your head, blocking out the world, the wind, and the sound of someone nearby softly weeping over turnips. It's not comfort, but it's coverage. And right now, that's enough. Because here, in this camp, in this tent, in this half-frozen, half-feral night, there are no blankets, just furs that smell like wet dog and survival. You're lying there, eyes open, blanket of damp fur over your face, pretending you're asleep, but you're not, because something just howled. Not nearby, exactly, but not far either. You freeze. Try to listen without breathing too loudly, which, frankly, is impossible when your nose is stuffed from sleeping beside a fire that doubles as a smoke machine. There it is again. Low, long, distant. A sound that says, "We're out here. We've got teeth. And we're hungry." Someone in the tent shifts. Someone else coughs. No one says it, but you're all thinking the same thing. That noise? Just wolves. Hopefully. See, if it's wolves, that's kind of okay. Because wolves make sense. They stay outside. They sniff around. Maybe steal a chicken. Maybe howl a bit to remind you who runs the forest. But they're wolves. Predictable. 4 legs. Furry. Will leave. If you throw something loud and vaguely threatening, You can deal with wolves. It's the other things you don't want to think about, like the story Gerald told about the shadow in the woods that wasn't shaped like any man or beast, about the eyes, not glowing, but watching. He said it was probably just a deer. No one believed him, including Gerald, or the time the goats wouldn't stop bleeding for no reason. Middle of the night, full moon, no wind, just endless, terrified goat screams. Next morning, the door was open. The chickens were gone. So was the smallest ladle, which felt specific. So, yes, wolves are fine, normal, logical, livable. That's why you cling to that hope now. As the howling continues, you whisper to the guy next to you, "Did you hear that?" He doesn't answer, probably pretending to be asleep, like you were. Or maybe he didn't hear. Or maybe he did and doesn't want to talk about it. Which is worse? You glance at the tent flap. It moves a little. Just the wind. Probably. Except you remember that the wind earlier was blowing the other way. You pull the fur tighter. It smells like fear and mildew. You reach for your stick, the camp weapon everyone keeps. Part torch, handle, part hope. You grip it like it matters, like it'll help if something with fangs walks in. It won't, but it feels like it might. The howling stops, which is somehow worse. Now there's nothing. No wind, no owls, no fire crackle. Just waiting. You close your eyes. Tell yourself it's over. That it was wolves. Definitely wolves. The kind that chase deer, not people. The kind that sleep during full moons and avoid tents full of cold, tired peasants. And one terrified guy with a stick. You hear a rustle. Right outside, you hold your breath. Your body is motionless. Even your thoughts are whispering now. Then, snort. A goat. It's just the goat. You exhale so hard, your nose whistles. From the dark, someone mumbles, "Told you. Wolves." You smile weakly, because it wasn't wolves. Not this time, but next time? Could be, or worse. You shift under the fur. The air is cold. The floor is colder. But your stick is close. And for now, the night is quiet again. Too quiet. But you'll take it. You stood up for 1 second, just to stretch your legs. Maybe check the fire. Shake a beetle out of your shirt. Nothing dramatic. Nothing permanent. But when you turned back, your spot was gone. Gone. Occupied. Claimed. By a man who is definitely awake and definitely pretending not to see you. You stand there in the flickering firelight, staring at your former bedroll. It still smells like you. You warmed that spot. That dent in the hay? Yours. That semi-dry patch of fur? Also yours. And now it's covered by someone else's elbows. "You're in my spot," you say, gently. No response. Edric. Still nothing. He's got his eyes shut and his arms crossed like a stubborn corpse. Someone across the tent laughs. Another mutters, "You moved. Camp law." You blink. Camp what? There are no written rules here, but everyone knows this one. You leave your spot, even for a second, and it becomes public property. You didn't believe it until now. You try reasoning. I was literally right here 5 minutes ago. 5 minutes is eternity. Someone offers helpfully, not looking up from the spoon he's gnawing like it owes him rent. It was still warm. Exactly. Edric grunts, finally cracking one eye. Why would I take a cold spot? You stare. He smirks. You consider violence, but your stick weapon is currently holding up the tent flap. You look around for options. There are none. Someone's curled up in the ash pile. Another's sleeping halfway inside a boot. One man is resting on a pile of turnips, like it's a feather mattress. He looks weirdly content. You don't trust it. You sigh. You could try to reclaim your spot. Start a blanket tug of war. Wake everyone up. Create chaos. But the last person who tried that ended up sleeping outside with the goat. And the goat kicks. You pick up a corner of an abandoned cloak and settle beside the fire pit. It's lumpy, cold, slightly wet, smells like soup. You stare at the flames. Across the tent, Edric shifts, grunts, farts. Of course he does. It's fine. You didn't need that spot. Just the warmest place in the tent. The one with the least draft. The spot where your hay nest was. Finally starting to feel like a home. It's fine. Totally. Fine. You roll over. A rock stabs you in the kidney. You whisper into the cloak. One day, Edric. One day. He doesn't hear. But the goat outside probably does. And the goat knows revenge. You wake up and something feels wrong. Not dramatically wrong. Not wolves in the tent wrong. Just missing. You lie still for a moment, blinking up at the sagging canvas roof. Fur blanket half on, half off. Breath puffing in front of your face like ghost smoke. Then it hits you. You can't feel your feet. You sit up slowly. You wiggle your toes, or try to. Nothing happens. No sensation. No movement. It's like they packed up and left in the night. Left a note saying, too cold, too tired. See you in spring. You stare down at your legs. They're still there. That's a good sign. But from the knees down, it's emotional guesswork. You reach under the fur and touch your boots. They're stiff, not like leather should be, like frozen bread crust. You peel one off. Your sock comes with it. What's beneath isn't a foot. It's a foot-shaped idea. White, slightly blue, somewhere between flesh and ice sculpture. You tap your heel. Nothing. You slap your toe. Still nothing. This is fine. Probably. You poke it harder. Ow! Someone hisses nearby. Wrong foot. That one was Harold's. You whisper, has anyone ever lost their feet in their sleep? No one answers, either because they're still asleep or because they're all thinking. Probably. You look over at the fire pit. Embers now, barely a flicker. You shuffle over, dragging your possibly gone feet like sad sacks of frozen porridge. You stick them toward the warmth, hoping they remember how to be feet. Someone else joins you. They grunt, point at your legs. Still got all. Your toes. You check. Hard to say. You count. 1, 2, 3.5. Yes. Maybe. Here's the thing about camp life. You don't lose limbs all at once. You lose them emotionally first. A numb finger here. A tingling ear there. Then, suddenly, you're holding your hand up to the fire like it's a stranger you just met. Feet are the first to go. Always. Because the boots are soaked. The socks are wool in theory, but holes in reality. And the ground? The ground has made it personal. You think about the stories, old soldier tales of frostbite and black toes, of feet turning purple, of someone once trying to warm theirs too fast and losing them in the stew pot. You don't want stew foot, you just want sensation. You rub them, gently at first, then furiously, like you're sanding wood. One toe twitches, maybe, or your hand slipped. You can't tell anymore, but you're hopeful. And hope, in this camp, is stronger than medicine. A few minutes later, someone throws more sticks on the fire. The flames rise, heat returns. Slowly, it stings. That horrible pins and needles. Your feet are mad at you, kind of sting. You hiss, you laugh, because the pain means they're still there, frostbitten, bruised, betrayed. But there, you sit back, sighing. Across the tent, someone mutters, "You good?" "Yeah," you say. "Just got my feet back." "Lucky," he replies. "Mine left in October." And as the fire crackles and your toes throb like tiny angry fists, you smile into the smoke. Because out here, numb feet are normal. Coming back from the dead, that's the real miracle. You're almost asleep. Again, wrapped in your fur that smells like wet dog. Feet, recently defrosted. Stomach, half full of turnip slop. Mind, gently drifting toward that rare medieval miracle called rest. Then a voice cuts through the tent like a dagger through bread. Midnight, behind the goat pen. Bring your stick. You open one eye. Slowly, cautiously, standing over you is Raymond, shirtless, barefoot, eyes wide, like he's just declared war on the moon. You blink. What? You insulted my honor. You sit up a bit. When? Earlier. You said I smelled like old soup. Because you do smell like old soup. He gasps like you slapped him with a ham. So it's true then. You stare. He stares. Somewhere. In the tent, someone groans and rolls over. Midnight, he repeats dramatically. Duel. For dignity. And then he leaves. You flop back down. Unbelievable. Let's be clear. Medieval duels were not elegant affairs. No gleaming armor. No ceremonial trumpets. No elegant fencing with dramatic pauses. Camp duels were mostly two half-frozen idiots waving sticks at each other behind livestock. Why? Because someone ate someone else's bread, or borrowed a spoon without asking, or, apparently, made an accurate olfactory observation. You glance at the shadowy lump beside you. Should I go? You whisper. Bring a second, the lump mumbles. That's how they get you. Ambush duel. Midnight arrives like a reluctant guest. You wrap your fur around your shoulders and grab your duel stick. Technically, a broken broom handle, but it's seen things. You shuffle behind the goat pen. It smells exactly like it sounds. Raymond is already there, shirt still off. He's pacing, dramatically, probably rehearsing insults. You clear your throat. So, we doing this? Yes, unless you apologize for pointing out that you smell like soup, old soup. You stare at each other. A goat sneezes nearby. Then you both raise your sticks. And what follows is not graceful, more flailing than fighting, more grunting than strategy, more slipping in goat droppings than anything resembling coordination. You land one hit directly to his knee. He gets a weak tap on your shoulder, Then you both double over, wheezing like two broken bellows. Enough? You ask. Enough, he gasps. You sit side by side on an overturned bucket, sticks discarded, ego mildly bruised. You really do smell like soup, you add. Yeah, he nods. It's the tunic. I spilled broth last week. You sit in silence. The stars are out. The goats are unimpressed. You're both cold, both tired, but also weirdly calmer, like the duel didn't solve anything practical, but somehow still helped. Back in the tent, everyone is still snoring. You crawl into your hay pile, feet frozen again, cloak crooked, dignity half gone, but your heart's lighter. And Raymond, now slightly limping, gives you a small nod before curling up in a corner with his soup tunic. Camp life isn't quiet. It's not clean, but it is honest. Sometimes, when words fail, you settle things with a stick and a goat pen, and that's good enough. You didn't mean to say it out loud. It just slipped out. One of those soft, accidental things your mouth says when your brain's too tired to keep secrets. You were lying there, half awake, half frozen, curled in a blanket that smells like wet leaves and burned onions, staring at the sagging canvas above, and you whispered it, I miss home, and they laughed. Not mean, exactly, not cruel, just loud, the way people laugh when something hits too close to the bone. Someone snorted, What home? The one with the rats or the one with the screaming baby? Another chimed in, You mean the hut where the wind came in through every wall? Or the one where your uncle snored louder than the pigs? Laughter rippled through the tent like smoke, rough, tired laughter. The kind that sounds like it's been chewed on and spit back out. You smiled, barely, but you didn't say anything else, because what you meant wasn't the building, not the roof, not the floor. You meant the feeling of knowing where you were, of bread that didn't smell like someone else's boots, of a chair, just one chair, of waking up to light, not yelling, of falling asleep to silence, not seven men chewing in unison. Home was familiar, even the bad parts, even the cracked walls and the leaky roof, and that weird corner that always smelled like pickled beets. At least it was yours. You miss the rhythm, the sound of your mother chopping onions with that old blunt knife, the creak of the stool when your father leaned back just a little too far, the way the chickens clucked like they were gossiping about you. Here, in the camp, everything is borrowed. The food, the space, the warmth, the clothes. Even your name doesn't feel like yours some days. Just a syllable someone shouts when they need help lifting something heavy. You stare into the fire pit. There's barely a flame tonight, just soft, angry coals glowing like they want to quit. Someone's poking it half-heartedly with a stick. No one's talking now. The laughter died off. Maybe they thought about it too long. Then someone mutters, Yeah, I miss mine too. Quiet, honest, not a joke. Someone else adds, I miss the bread from the baker near the mill. I miss my dog. Stupid mutt never listened. I miss not being cold all the time. Suddenly, the silence isn't so lonely. It's shared. You don't talk much after that. No one does. But you fall asleep a little easier, still cold, still hungry, but not as alone. And maybe that's the closest thing to home you'll get out here. You open one eye, just one, slowly, like peeling a wet bandage off a slightly bruised sole. The light stabs you, soft gray dawn leaking through the holes in the canvas like a tired apology. Morning, you're still here, and by some small, mildly insulting miracle, you're still alive. Your body aches in places you didn't know had bones. Your feet feel like thawed stones. Your back, a series of bad decisions held together by regret. Your mouth tastes like turnip breath and ash. You shift under your fur, which now smells like damp goat and unspoken trauma, and try to remember if you actually slept. You didn't. You survived. Next to you, someone groans. Loudly. What day is it? The same one as yesterday. Someone replies from under a sack. Just more disappointing. You sit up. Slowly, cautiously. Everything creaks, including your spirit. The fire's out again. Of course, the pot is empty. The bucket has frozen. And someone's boot is in your lap. Not their foot. Just the boot. No explanation. The tent smells like sweat, onions, and ambition that died during the night. Someone sneezes hard enough to wake the guy across the tent, who immediately rolls over and falls back asleep with a dramatic sigh. You pull on your boots, stiff, cold, and morally opposed to your toes. They feel like punishment. You stand. The tent tilts slightly. Or maybe you do. Your knees crack like someone stepping on ice. You make eye contact with the man across from you. He nods. It's the kind of nod that says, "We didn't die." Amazing. Outside, it's worse. The sky is gray. The wind has fangs. The mud has opinions. The goats are staring like they know things you don't, which they probably do. Someone's already trying to relight the fire with wet sticks and blind optimism. Another is yelling about missing turnips. Again, a third is walking in circles just to remember how his legs work. You breathe, slow, shaky. The air is sharp, clean-ish, cold enough to make you forget how to think. But it's air, and it's morning. You're still alive, not rested, not ready, not remotely thrilled, but breathing, still here, which, in this camp, is practically a holiday. You mutter something close to a prayer, or maybe just a complaint shaped like gratitude, and you join the others, one foot in front of the other, because it's a new day, and misery loves company.